Today for us to start doing some standing and some fighting to back that
up. I was thinking about with sports in general was like this year. We're about to end this year, and we have seen a whole lot of things up and down, left and right. And it's hard to know what to expect. But I think that for a lot of people who enjoy sports, playing them or watching them, that this year's sports were a little bit more important than they ever kind of were. But I still think about it like for the athletes and also for people who are like lifelong fans is the fact that like people been on quarantine, some people been injured, some games have been postponed, some seasons have been kind of like spaced out over time because they started and they had to cut it off and they start back up. Like, so do you guys think that the sports championships for the different sports that's being played, baseball, football, especially basketball during the bubble, do y'all think that those championships are going to be viewed as valid in the future, or are they going to just forget that we had this COVID, or, you know what I'm saying, people had issues going into this?
I think they count, man. Especially in the sense that when you look at it, when you're competing for a championship, every athlete, professional athlete, their aspiration is to of course be well compensated, but also to compete for championships. So if you're going to say that the reason to put an asterisk next to it would be if there was some unfair advantage, that champion had that wasn't afforded to a similar team from the past that didn't have that. And the reason I would say to not put that asterisk is because all of the teams that they competed against and won against also had those same disadvantages. Like in this sense, it is a snapshot. It is maybe a one-off year, but I look at it similar to how you've had championships in the past where teams won, but the season was shortened because of a strike. There was a season where, games were played maybe at a neutral site because the team was, their stadium was hit by a hurricane or whatever. They had to play in a different city that year. So, in that sense, it is a unique year, but I don't look at it as being any less valid than any other championship, regardless of what sport.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you said as far as being remembered, of course it's not going to be remembered. We don't, you spoke about how we're not far removed from slavery. So what about those athletes that were like fresh out of slavery in the NBA, NFL? And what did they have to go through as far as daily life and dealing with and maintaining a career and maintaining a family? And we don't talk about that. Like we barely talk about what Muhammad Ali went through, to be who he was. We talk more about his boxing and what he had to put up with. So as far as it being remembered, I don't think so. And the effect, I think it matters. Like basketball, you have to look at each individual sport. Basketball, it didn't affect because we saw the stars play against the stars. We saw the Lakers' best play again. Nobody was taken out because of COVID as far as like in the main games in the championship. Now in the NFL, if two teams go to the Super Bowl and one team loses their quarterback for a failed COVID test, we have to chalk that up to that's not going to be a fair championship and it won't be valid. So I think like the situations vary because my favorite sport right now is MMA, UFC. And, if a champion has to pull out and somebody gets his belt because of COVID, but it hasn't been like that. It's been the best versus the best. And just like in every sport, it's been injuries taking people out, and that's normal. That's so as far as sports go, up until this point, I think it has to be respected, just like Nick said, it has to be taken as the same. And we'll see as far as how the next sports are affected because we're still living through this.
Are they getting paid? One, right? Like, is everybody getting paid still? You know what I'm saying? If everybody's getting paid, then we're good. You know what I'm saying? So, like, if you have to, I don't think it should count at all, in my opinion. Like, I don't think it should count because, one, if somebody does get COVID, like the brother said, like Jason said, like, how are we going to move it? Thank goodness it didn't happen, but what if it does, right? So then should we not count that? You know what I'm saying? It becomes kind of sticky.
If LeBron had caught COVID and he couldn't play, people would not call the championship legit because they would say oh, the reason why so and so won was because so and so caught COVID. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, there's degrees to that. I think that that's something where now, in today's climate where people debate about whether champions are valid based on a lot of different factors. But, we just saw, a year ago, the Toronto Raptors won the championship against the Warriors, but the Warriors was ravaged by injury. KD didn't play. Clay got hurt. They weren't 100%. So even without a pandemic being a factor, there's been championships. Michael Jordan left for 2 years, and the Rockets won 2 championships back to back. Jordan didn't play in one of those years, and the other year he had just come back. They got eliminated, but he didn't play the whole season. And there's a lot of people that believe that Jordan could have won 8 straight championships, or that Houston would have never been back-to-back champions if Jordan never walks away from the game. So, I mean, there's always going to be questions about, when it comes to injury or one player, one piece not being available as to what could have been the outcome of games. But then there's also stories where, my Buckeyes won a championship 6 years ago with their third string quarterback. They first 2 quarterbacks both were injured, and they still won the championship. And, that man was able to get drafted. And
I was about to say that was a damn good third string and a damn good second string. When they had 3 great quarterbacks though. But I know.
Yeah, but that's the beauty of sports though. It's like, and a team can be favored on paper, and it's like there's no way that I could see them losing, and then they play the game and they lose, So I mean, in terms of just questioning the validity of a championship based on whether or not there's a pandemic or not, I think you could do that with a lot of different eras, outside of the pandemic. Just like I said, whether it be injury or somebody changing teams, coaching change, whatever,
I just looked at it like, such a wide sweeping thing that affects everybody, but at the same time, I'm glad that everybody was able to effectively go into what they expected to, whether they got sick or not. They got paid. They signed up for it. They got out there. They had a chance to compete. Whether they won or they lost, they were able to do that. So, shout out to all of the athletes out there that did go play. Shout out to all the athletes that said, my kids matter more, my family matters more, and they decided to not engage in sports.
Man, get out of here. They're getting paid millions of dollars to play a sport. Y'all better get out there and do it. Give me $1 million. I'll play basketball every day of my life so that I die and be paid. Get out of here.
Facts.
Now, I get what you're saying, Nate, but no way. Let's not make it like they're doing something. So it's people doing real stuff out here during this pandemic that's worth playing sport. We appreciate it, but come on, man. You support the money they make. Get your ass out there and play that game, man.
I feel you on that, because at the end of the day, like, really, you got to imagine, like, the decision that I would make. Like, I know I would look at it like that, but at the same time, like, what if I was already set? Like,
right.
the player that's in his first contract is like hungry. That's the same with anything though. And then the player that's in his 10th season looking at retiring after 2 years is like, I'm probably not gonna do much if I'm on a team that's not winning and I'm already like on my way out. I already had my big contract. I mean, what? Like,
a lot of these decisions when it comes to whether or not teams are going to play a season or not play a season is driven by money. Like when games get postponed, the advertising dollars, the TV networks stand to lose because companies pay millions of dollars to have advertising. And then like the biggest example to me is if you look at college football, you know what I mean? Like these cats are not paid, you know what I mean? And they're out there. And it's not a coincidence to me that when at the beginning of the season they announced which schools were playing and which teams were canceling. If you look at all of the teams that were canceling the season, like, oh, we're not going to play. Who was it? It was like the Ivy League. It was like the Big Ten. It was schools that are academically sound where these kids that are playing on these football teams, they're not really thinking about, I'm trying to go to the NFL. You know what I mean? Like, they're thinking those are going to be doctors and lawyers and politicians, you know what I mean? But they're playing, Division I college sports. The SEC, they got right back out there, you know what I mean? Then you had cats like on the Big Ten, Ohio State, like the quarterback that they had already announced they was canceling the season, but he's got the chance to be a top 5 draft pick. He's like, no, I want to play. You know what I mean? And knowing that on any one play, he could have a career-ending injury and maybe not even be able to walk again. But it's like just the amount of risk involved in getting to that level where you have a chance to be a millionaire overnight and change. That's generational wealth. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's a coincidence that the schools that was the most willing to get back out there and play are the money schools with the kids that are trying to go to the NFL. You know what I mean? Like,
health is the most important thing, you know what I'm saying? And even though people are trying to get this money, it's like you got to always consider your health is the thing that's most important.